Hello everyone and welcome to the first ever episode of Sexton Soccer Stories. To say I'm absolutely delighted to be presenting this show and bringing you this episode is absolutely amazing. So please, everyone that's listening, welcome and thank you so much. Please check me out on my socials, Sexton Soccer Stories. I'm on TikTok, Instagram and Facebook. And if you're checking me out on YouTube, please like and subscribe. My podcast is going to be about me as a Scottish ex-professional footballer. I'm going to be bringing you stories, interviews and laughs from former players and present players in our Scottish football beautiful game. Today, before I even start, I've got some acknowledgements to make. I've got Sexton Soccer Stories that's on the road. On the road is where I go out and meet numerous football clubs, meet the fans, get the match day experience. And I was so delighted that Vicky Duguid, who works at Elgin City, invited me up to Elgin City on Saturday to the most northerly Scottish football stadium in the United Kingdom, which was brilliant. The whole match day experience was excellent. I can't thank the chairman, the directors, the staff dom who looked after me and my son Henry. If you do stay up there, or if you've got a bucket list, please get Elgin City on your bucket list. The match day experience, the hospitality was absolutely fantastic, so thanks very much. I also want to acknowledge my family, but most importantly my partner Jennifer, who's been with me for the last couple of years and has a sore head listening to me trying to present this show, and a big thanks to her because she's been amazing. So thank you, Jennifer, and thanks to Paul and the Green Room podcast. So today, let's not waste any more time. I've got former Morton and Auchinleck Talbot, legend, Scottish Junior Cup winner, Scottish internationalist at junior level, and basically just a guy I'm delighted to call a great friend, Bryan Slavin. Welcome, Bryan.
Thank you, Brian. Good to be here.
How was your journey today?
Aye, good, mate. Had to dig at the vet, but then get the train up. So, nice day in Glasgow. But not a bad place to come to, is it?
Superb.
Got to play there a bit of football.
Of course. So we're just going to go back to when you were a child or when you were a young adult. When did you get into football and how did you get into football?
Well, when I came along, there was two brothers already there. So everybody was football mad in my house, apart from my mother, to be fair. Although I dare say she could put in a fair 50-50 if she needed to. But my dad, my two brothers were on to football. They were already playing when I started. So it was kind of a natural progression for me to be out the back door playing with my brothers and getting booted about. We all struggle a wee bit with mental illness, I would suggest. Mm-hmm. So we don't like getting beat. We like to kick lumps at each other. So if I was showing any promise in the back garden, my brothers would put me up in the air. So it was a good a learning ground for me, to be fair, Bryce. So that's probably how I kind of got into it in the first place, to be honest.
Okay. And where did you play then at a young level?
So I grew up in Saltcoats, the famous Ayrshire Riviera down there, the Three Towns. So our local team, boys club, is Tas Thistle down there. They kind of started, I think it was about 84 was the first team. My team ended up being the third Tas team that ever came into existence. They're a big boys club now down in Ayrshire. So that was my team. But I first started playing, I went to the Beavers and the Cubs when I was a wee boy, and the Cubs had a football team. So that was my kind of first foray into actually organised football, playing in the Cubs League at 9-year-old, and then simultaneously kind of around at that time is when I joined Tas as well. So that was kind of my first foray into actual football lines. Well, I was going to say size 5s. We might have still had size 4s then. Certainly wasn't any size 3s. Oh man, well, yeah, we all played with them. But playing down the local public park, Saturday morning. So I've got very fond memories of that.
Absolutely.
As I'd imagine Maestey's day. Mm-hmm. And I still have that hankering when you drive by, and I drive by it maybe when I'm going down the town or whatever. You drive by the park that you used to play football at, and you go, oh, I wish I could go back out there and play again. Get the memories of the days. And the one that sticks out in my head is my secondary school was right beside the football parks. So you kind of I still crave the days of the late summer when you're just went back to school and you've still got midweek games that you can play. And when the light nights come in at the end of the season and you're sitting in school and you're looking out, you're up in the second floor and you're looking at the window at the football parks, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to play football today out there, and you're desperate, you're bouncing about your seat. So I've still got really fond memories, and that always comes up every time. So it was a good place to learn to play football.
Brilliant. So obviously I've got similar memories, but we're here just now because both of us love football. And I think that's the reason why, and that is the main reason why I've started this podcast, because I want to see the journey that I had when I was younger, and that's why I'm so interested to see that I wasn't alone in that journey.
Aye, absolutely.
Looking out my window, seeing when I can start to play football again, and Red Ash Parks and all this kind of stuff. So then when you were playing at TAS, you then move on to a level where you thought, I'm actually no bad at this game.
Well, I mean, I started playing with TAS at 9-year-old, so I mean, I was there for a number of years. I kind of try to think how we went for there. I think you were probably a similar journey to myself. You go and train with that senior team when you get that old enough, and there's scouts out watching. So you train with umpteen different senior teams on a Wednesday night or a Sunday morning or whatever it happens to be. And then I think we're running about when I was 15 or something like that. Air Boswell, were probably when I was growing up, were probably the biggest boys club team in Ayrshire, I would suggest. Valspar and Ayr will probably argue with that, but I would say Air Boswell were the biggest team, and they kind of came and headhunted me to come and play. They were going to play and moving up to the Glasgow leagues to play, so I played with them on a Saturday, kind of from when I was 15 onwards, and I would play with TAS on the Sunday. So that was my kind of starting to kind of step up, essentially, in levels. And then within a year or two, I was then scouted by Morton and started playing with the youth team in at Morton.
Yep. And how did the approach go with Morton then? Did they contact you by phone, or did they send a letter, or did somebody come and speak to you?
They had an Ayrshire scout, if I remember correctly, it was Billy Adair, and he'd got in touch with us, and there was a couple of, you'll have experienced this as well, Brian, probably a lot of other folk did that went through the youth setup. They had organised kind of trial matches up in Greenock, so I went up to the Battery Park, so they were getting obviously all the kind of decent players for the local area and to play in a trial match. So I think I played 2 games at the Battery Park, kind of one Wednesday and then the following Wednesday. Did well in the first game, scored 2. Again, I was a right winger growing up, so played wide right, scored 2 in the first trial game at Battery Park, and felt dead comfortable and confident. And I wasn't a confident guy. I didn't have a swagger about me or nothing, but felt good about where I was. And then same again the following, the second game, scored a couple of goals for wide right, and they then pulled the best 11, or best maybe 13 or 14, I suppose, and we played a final trial game on Carpolo against, it was one of the Morton Boys Club teams. So whether it was 15s or I can't remember the age group, and we went and played Carpolo. Within 10 minutes, I started wide right. Within 10 minutes, for some strange reason, the left back got injured, right, in our team. So John McMaster, you remember John from Morton. So John McMaster, again, I don't know how these things happen. He knows football way better than I do. So he moved me. I was wide right, attacking right winger, goal scorer. He moved me to left back in the trial game. I'm thinking, that's me done. There's absolutely no chance of me getting signed here or progressing for this on. Went to left back and played, and I had a cracking game. Played really well. Scored the third goal, cut in for the left hand side, hit one with my right foot for about 25 yards, and I can't shoot. I couldn't shoot for distance, and it just sailed right into the top corner. Pure fluke, meant to be, and that was me. I get signed in an S form, and from that moment, that was the first time I'd ever played in defence. From that moment at Morton, I was a defender. I never played further forward until later on when Ian McCall came in. Years later at Morton. So it was a strange journey how things turned out. You're an attacking wide right, and within 10 minutes you're suddenly a defender, having never played there in my entire career.
For a European Cup winner who knows the game inside out.
Man, I mean, I'm not going to argue with John McMaster. God's sake.
For a lot of the folk that are maybe listening, a lot of the young listeners, an S form for us back in the day was when you were maybe 14,
Aye.
You signed an S form. It was a school forum.
Yep. Schoolboy forum.
Whereas,
That's right.
The equivalent of that now is these youth academies.
Aye.
You get signed up. But for us, when we played the game, an S form was when you were still at school. You were 14, and if you hadn't signed an S form, you weren't that good for some other reason. Even though loads of players didn't sign S forms because their parents were interested in making sure they had a good school.
Aye.
They were really good at their school and great school, and they wanted an education. And so in that respect, the S form is always so. If you met somebody, that was the first thing what I remember is, you signed S form. That's amazing, you know.
So that was gold dust.
So were you about 14 then when that was happening?
I would have been older than that, Brian. I was probably 15 going towards 16 if I hadn't already turned 16. So I was later on when I was at Morton, because I think I'd trained at Dundee United, Celtic, Kilmarnock. I've been up at Ayr United for a wee bit. You know how you...
Yep, absolutely, I remember.
The kind of good players ended up, you kind of go round umpteen of the local kind of teams, and it never, most of them never really went anywhere.
What about down in Ayrshire when, obviously, I don't think Kilmarnock and Ayr United would have been too pleased losing somebody with your talent up the way to Morton?
The funny thing is, it wasn't until we were speaking about it before, about having this conversation, and I had remembered when I was at Ayr Boswell, the year we went, I can't remember if it was the first year we went 18s or the second year we went 18s, but Kilmarnock, I'd been training with Kilmarnock, and they asked me to go and play with their 18s. They were getting into the same league as Ayr Boswell. It was your first year at 18s, and I had kind of taken some advice on it and knocked Kilmarnock back, and to stay with again. You think about these things and you shake your head and think, why would I knock back the senior team? Potentially the chance to go in and do something really good, to stay with the boys club team. But I'm a great believer in things are meant to be.
Of course.
So whatever changed my mind at that point, I decided it was Alan Robertson had phoned me, and I think I remember him being a bit perplexed on the phone about why I would stay at Boswell and no go to Kilmarnock.
Who would you have chose, Kelly or Ayr?
To be honest, I don't really have a major sway one way or the other, but I've got cousins for Ayr, and my uncle's an Ayr United fan, so probably I would have erred on the side, but they would have done me in if I'd signed with Kelly, but
exactly.
They wouldn't have disowned me completely.
So obviously you're S1 at Morton.
Yes.
Training probably with them twice a week maybe. At Park Hall, or was
I think at that point when I signed S form, I pretty much started playing with the youth team right away. So I think I'd have been 16, 17. So it would at least been my first year with the youth. But I think I played probably 2 years down initially for a few games anyway, before I then went in and played full time when I was 17. So that kind of first year at 18s. So I remember playing 2 full seasons with the youth team at Morton. So, but I think I played a few games before when I was like 16, just to kind of see how you're getting on and stuff like that.
And were you still at school at that time then?
I still at school. Left school. Again, we're going through the old historical kind of youth development here system, but S form was my first one, and then I left school and went to college, and they weren't going to sign me part-time or anything like that. So I signed an X form, which was an S form, but for folk that were kind of in between work and school type of thing. So I signed an X form for a year before they eventually signed me part-time.
What did you study at college? Hairdressing?
That probably would have been more useful to me now if I had done hairdressing.
It wasn't fashion design anyway for what you're wearing today.
Well, that's true. I like to dress older, Brian. I done health and fitness was I done an HNC in health and fitness, and then changed over to sports coaching because that was always an interest of mine, to be fair. It's probably done me... So you say it's done me no good. That's probably not true, because I've learned a lot of stuff from the coaching side of it that's been really invaluable. But from a professional work point of view, it's been of no value to me. But it was a great experience. You go to college, you meet all different folk, and you learn all different things. So it's a good life experience, certainly. And from the football point of view, I think that's the thing that I've picked up is I played a lot of different sports growing up, and especially at college. Played a lot of different things, basketball and badminton and things you would never have done otherwise. And it gives you a better understanding of your own sport that you play.
Absolutely.
Because there was things I brought from certainly basketball specifically, things that I learned in basketball that I thought that relates, I can relate that to football, runs or defensive tactics, and folk will go, how can you possibly relate basketball to football? But there's things that happen within a play and you go, that's just like this thing that happens in football. So that definitely helped me in the football side as well.
That's
and I think
amazing.
it's probably something that's underutilised by folk.
Yep.
And I think it's probably a big issue with Scottish football these days. Kids getting pigeonholed straight into youth academies at 8-year-old, don't ever play any other sports. But I mean, I was out playing tennis and golf and doing all sorts of stuff growing up. Probably you were the same.
Exact same.
And a lot of boys at our age were probably the same, playing different sports. And it makes you a lot more well-rounded. And I dare say, from a neurological point of view, it's activating different parts of the brain as well. But I don't know if we're losing that these days from a youth football point of view. But again, that's another conversation.
Of course,
for another day.
We'll probably come back to that. So, you obviously went on then to sign for Morton.
Yes.
Can you remember the day you signed?
I don't really, actually. It's probably something I should remember, to be honest. But when my first part-time contract, I dare say it must have been in Alan McGraw's office. But you know what FIT was like? It could have been in the Battery Park changing rooms on a wet Tuesday night after a game. So it's more likely to be that, and that's why I don't remember it. And I've scrawled it on a wooden bench. Do you know what I mean? With
Absolutely.
my father there.
I remember that.
It's probably been
So what was
like
it like when your mum and dad and your brothers found out and you signed for a professional club?
I remember, I don't specifically remember. We were at, my dad and my brothers, we're probably, and I've got this trait and all, I think, and it's maybe a West of Scotland thing. There's no so much of a, like everybody will be quietly proud of you, but
they don't tell you. They
don't tell you. It's not a big, like, let's all hug it out sort of. Do you know? Maybe it is nowadays, but certainly when we were growing up, it's more of a kind of tough love situation, and it's more about, like, you'll not get congratulated particularly on the great stuff that you do, but you maybe score 5 goals, but after the game I feel like, what about that chance you missed?
Absolutely.
It was harder to miss it than score it. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
So it's that whole, so I've got that, again, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's that whole, it's not about, I'm always looking at what can I have done better there, rather than what did I do really good. I'm always thinking, so again, is that a bad thing? I don't know. Somebody else can tell me. So it was that sort of thing. So I'm pretty sure they were secretly proud of me. And obviously my father would have said my mum and father would have said nice things to me at the time. It doesn't stick out in my head, but that's kind of the way probably all families were to some degree.
Especially back then.
Exactly.
And it
was
wasn't
different
like my parents didn't drive, so
mine were the same.
So it was like buses and taxis.
Honest to God, man, the amount of money you spent on buses, Sunday mornings getting the bus to Kilmarnock, it's like, honestly, it's a camel trek. You get the bus for Salkits to Kilmarnock, it's like an hour and 20 minutes on a Sunday morning. I would do my paper run, and it was Dundee United I would train me that, so getting the buses there and back and trains up and down, and so I feel your pain, Brian. I did exactly the same.
And as you talk about, I mean, that's life experiences, man. That's over 30 years ago, and you still remember getting the bus, getting a taxi, missing the bus being cancelled, and
printed in my brain.
And
the travelling you did, but as you said, it's good life experience.
Absolutely.
Would I send my wee boy to do that nowadays? I don't know if I would.
No, you wouldn't.
But it's a different
football.
It's
now.
a different
totally,
time now.
Totally.
So it's that's probably moved on from that point of view. Plus I drive, so I'm not going to send them on the bus.
No. So when you signed, was it into pre-season then from there?
Aye.
Who was the manager at that time?
So Alan McGraw. Right. So
Alan and John McMaster.
So I remember you being at Morton.
Right.
When I was there. So when did you leave?
I was injured probably.
Right.
I was always injured.
But I remember you. Just because you're a big character, I remember you. So because I got a few shots in the reserves like stupidly early. I remember playing at Clydebank at the old Kilbowie.
Yep.
When I'd barely played a game with a youth team at that point, and John McMaster was like to my father,
He's just well playing.
Give him a chance, give him a shot in the reserves. I don't know where that came from. I must have been doing well in the first few games. He thought, let's just chuck him in and see how he does.
Yep.
Maybe there was a couple of injuries or whatever. And I remember playing at the old Kilbowie.
Yep.
It's funny how your memory is. I remember it being like really dark. I was obviously under the floodlights, a midweek game, really dark, and played against Davy Cooper. He must have been coming back for injury or something.
You stole my thunder there.
I mean,
it was
you
amazing.
could even have, maybe have played in that game.
So no, when I played at Kilbowie, I played in that game. But when my kind of memory of Kilbowie was, I played Clydebank youth team.
Oh, right.
So we played there as our youth cup games and stuff. But
Right.
I played there with Forfar against Clydebank.
Right.
And it was amazing. This guy, I'd never met him before. He was obviously at the
Tail end
of his career.
Aye.
But this guy was a different animal. It was amazing. But he actually was going through the game and saying to me, just touch that inside, just take a touch there, just whip the ball and now. And I'm thinking, I'm actually playing against you.
Aye.
And you're actually actively helping me out on the part. So for Clydebank to have get him in that time, I mean, and for guys like you and young in the game, getting to see Davy Cooper, getting to play against him must have just been amazing.
I mean, that's it. It's at that point. I mean, again, I was still playing youth football with my boys' club. I'd only had a couple of games with the youth team. I mean, you're gone from that to then somebody like Davy Cooper. It's at times like that when you see players like that and you go, this guy's playing a different sport.
Absolutely.
It's football,
Yep.
but it's like he's playing football on another planet.
Yep.
It's almost, and you're like, it's just the way they go about and do things. It's crazy.
And when you were playing at that level, I still remember the guys that when I was playing at that level and we were good footballers, but I remember the guys who, to me, you were going, that's the game. That's the way the game's meant to be played.
Aye.
In particular, Kevin Harper and Charlie Miller were two of the guys who I was like, kind of like, they're phenomenal.
Aye, they're at it.
Yep. And for you, was there anybody at that age or coming through at that age that you would say,
I'm trying to think. I can't. Nobody jumps out. There's the likes of Davy Cooper, and again, it was one of the ones with him. It wasn't because he didn't stick out because he got the ball and he beat three players and would score a goal or create a chance. But it was the thing that I appreciated is the way people take the ball and the way they move with their body, and it's like there's stuff that you can't quite quantify at times. We really, really, really good players. The way they move, the way they take the ball, they do things automatically that a lot of the rest days I've got to think about a bit more.
Yep.
And the further down the levels you go, it gets less and less automatic. But they guys are just like, it's just like a Rolls Royce, isn't it? They just pour through a game. Again, I know it was a reserve game at Kilbowie on a wet Wednesday night, and he's played at Hampden in front of thousands, and he's played with Scotland and all that. But there's still just a quality about
quality, and you can't take that away from somebody. And as you said, the kind of ending part of his career was amazing. You know, it was
he's the one that sticks out, and that was only a very small snapshot that I got him in one game at one time. There's nobody else that really jumps out at me that I'd go, there was that as well. Especially coming up. I probably played against, obviously we'd have played against like Rangers and Celtic youth teams and stuff like that as well. But there was nobody I would say that of that era that I played in, or on my age group, that I went, they're going to be an absolute superstar. To be fair. And that's why I always felt, I think, I didn't have a swagger about me, but I had a kind of inner confidence that I was good enough to play with these guys, because there was nobody that I thought, he's a million miles away from me. So I thought I can probably get here.
So you played in the reserve league for a wee while.
Aye.
How long? And then obviously you've then done well enough that the manager and assistant managers decided, let's give this boy a chance. So were you on the bench first, or did you make your full debut, or how did it come about?
I kind of remember the adult part, if it is we'll call it, quite clearly at Morton. Signing part time, playing the reserves for a couple of years when I was at college. So my debut was, I think it was a Tuesday or Wednesday night, but I think it was a Tuesday night. Falkirk at home at Capello. The first team were playing Kilmarnock in the quarterfinal of the Scottish. at Capello on the Saturday, and I think there was a couple of injuries, if I remember. So Alan McGraw was saving some bodies for the Saturday. I was 18 at college during the day, and then I'd get the shout to come in on the Tuesday night. I can't remember whether I knew I was playing or it was just that you're in the squad and then suddenly I've got a number 5 jersey. Again, we're talking a year and a half before that. I had never played in defence in my entire life, and all of a sudden I'm getting a centre-half's jersey. Again, and that was me coming for full-back into centre-half. Alan McGraw's handing me the centre-half's jersey to play in the first team at Capello in the first division. And with the best one in the world, I wasn't overawed in any way.
No.
But, I mean, I hadn't fully fouled out.
No, of course.
I was built like a wide player, like a fast winger.
Yep.
So it's not as if I was like a big, strong guy. I'm 5'10" as well, so I wasn't a big centre half.
No, but you could jump, and that's quite interesting. It was quite interesting you talked about the basketball, because my fond memories of how you get up in the air. I mean, it was amazing, and obviously you're saying there you're 5'10", but the fact that you're able to challenge. It was interesting that you liked basketball earlier on.
Strangely, that maybe helped. That's maybe why I did like basketball. But that was the timing thing. I don't know where I got that for. I can maybe attribute that to maybe my very young days at TAS. I remember Mr. Wardrop, one of the coaches, taking us for a session, and it sticks out in my head. I can't particularly remember what he was talking about. I remember one of the things he was saying about jump. When you jump up, get your elbows out, protect yourself, look after yourself. Wee things like that stick in your head, and so all the wee things probably helped me. But my timing was really good. That's probably the one thing, my heading, that I could stick that and go, I'm willing to put that up against anybody. See if I just had an extra couple of inches in height. It probably helped me a lot better, to be fair.
Right,
but
who was in the Falkirk team then? Who were you playing against?
So the manager's son was up front, so Mark McGraw played up front.
Okay.
It was Mark McGraw, wasn't it?
Mark McGraw,
I try to think. I can't remember who else played. The reason I remember because he scored 2 goals.
It was John Hughes and Rice and that there at that time.
Brian, I
can't remember.
I would need. I've got it in my scrapbook up the road, but I can't remember. I think if I remember correctly, the video of the goals are on YouTube. The old somebody's obviously recorded it off the telly and put it on YouTube. And I watch it and I still look at it. I'm like, the first goal, just a long kick out for the goalie, caught in my heels, over the tap. I'm like, oh man, and he beats the goalie and puts it in the net. So I remember that well, but that was my debut. But then that was like a one-off. And I kind of knew it was going to be a one-off because I was in and then back out again, away back to reserves. That was fine.
But we never had much good experience against Falkirk then, because you've not had a great game, and I scored an own goal in my debut, if you remember, against Falkirk. So I thought you were going to bring it up there instead. No. So before somebody else brings it up, unfortunately against Falkirk and right in the top corner as well. So
really,
and it was on these daft extra time with Jim White, the highlights, and to say I got a bit of stick was, even now, 30 years ago, you still get people introducing you to. I'm
glad you brought it, because somebody would have stuck it in the comments of this video probably if you hadn't. So
it's quite funny.
Get out of the way now.
So then that's you went back, you've been training, and I remember what it was like. You made the first team, and in particular, the coaches down there, they brought you straight back down to earth again.
Oh, aye.
You weren't swaggering about at that point. You had a swagger maybe inside you, but you weren't swaggering about. So what happened then to get you into the team then from then on?
So John McMaster was a really big influence on me when we got to Morton. I really felt as if he kind of went out and looked after me in terms of, I think he thought I had something. I remember there was a couple of things that he'd said, and I probably didn't appreciate it at the time, but thinking back now, that he probably was looking after me and just trying to keep my confidence up. Remember playing a youth team game at Linlithgow or somewhere like that away over on the East Coast. We played Hearts midweek. We get battered 7-0. And I remember coming into the dressing room after the game, gutted. And I remember him saying in front of everybody else, Aye, and if it hadn't been for Bryan Slavin, it'd have been 15. And I thought to myself, I didn't think I'd played great. We'd get beat 7-0. I was just sitting there with my head down thinking, I'm going to get absolutely battered here because we've lost 7-0. But it's interesting when guys who know the game, they obviously see things that
take a bit of positives. Take the positives.
Players are doing, even when you're under the cosh. And I really appreciated things like that, and it gave me a bit extra confidence probably to kick on a bit more as well. So John McMaster looked after me and probably had my back for a lot of things, probably the way he did for other players as well, but it was something I probably really needed at that point, and that probably helped propel me eventually into a full-time contract when Billy Stark took over for Alan McGraw. Cause it was him that signed me on my first... No, it wasn't, was it? It was him that signed me on the first professional contract, Billy Stark.
Amazing. I mean, even that, having Billy Stark...
full-time contract.
Even having Billy Stark there as your manager. I know. I mean, it's unreal at that time, and probably could still play.
I mean, I've been very lucky. The education I got in the game, I've been very lucky because from even joining Morton, obviously the coaches that you worked with, other senior clubs when you were in training and stuff, but at Morton, you had John McMaster. I mean, won numerous trophies with Aberdeen, including the European Cup Winners' Cup, famously in Gothenburg. So a European class player. And then along with that, I mean, Peter Cormack was the assistant to Alan McGraw, won European trophies with Liverpool. Alan McGraw, I don't like...
And who was in that Morton team? Was that Yanni Lindberg and Rajamaki and stuff like?
Alan Mahood.
Fantastic. I mean,
Derek
Alan Mahood, phenomenal. Oh, what
Derek
a team.
Collins, John Anderson, Brian Reid.
I mean, you think that team's... it was different class.
Do you know the one player that really stuck out for me? Again, he was unfortunate with injuries.
Now, I'm going to interrupt you here. There's two that stuck out for me at that time.
Right, when you go.
Jim Ptolemy.
Right, so he was before me.
John Gagan.
Again, before me as well.
And Stuart Rafferty.
Right, so they were all just... So they were in your era.
They guys were just phenomenal. So, sorry, who were you going to say?
Jim Hunter.
Jim, great.
Jim, what a guy. Cracking guy.
Lovely.
But...
Looked after you as well. Took care of you.
Unbelievable. Yep. Like no ego, which is so rare in the professional game. And what a player he was. What a defender. And it was the first time we were talking about guys who you thought, my God. I remember seeing him defending 1v1. The first time I ever saw it, the winger coming at him. And it was the first time I ever saw MD tackle like almost like I couldn't have been a slide tackle, but like tackling face on to a defender, winning the attacker, winning the ball and getting up and taking it away. And I was like, how did
what happened there?
What? And so I watched him really closely. Defensively, he was so good.
So good.
And just like he was a good football player, obviously, as well. But
a gentleman off the park.
About him that I was really in awe of, probably more than any of the rest of them. And I probably wasn't running about the rest of that first team at that point because I was younger. That was in the reserves that I played with Jim Hunter. So again, that's probably why I didn't have an impression of the rest of the guys that were running the first team at the time. But Jim Hunter was something special. And from what I understand, it was probably injuries that
the same
meant he didn't go higher.
I know. So you had a couple of seasons at Morton, about 38 appearances.
That's probably been kind, to be fair. That's probably including substitutions. I would suggest so. Probably most. Probably 2/3 of them are sub appearances. So
like the heartbreak that comes after that is obviously when you get a new manager in with his own ideas. Can you tell me what happened there?
It was the whole... I know obviously you were away by that time for Morton, but you'll remember the whole fiasco when the club got sold to Hugh Scott. There was all the upheaval. It was a nightmare. So I was there through that whole period. Ian McCall came in second half of my final season, and I mean, it was phenomenal for me. I played suddenly was playing in midfield. He was starting me in first team games in the middle of the park. I mean, I hadn't enjoyed my football as much, and I really thought, right, I'm actually going to go somewhere new. I can do this. He got the sack at the end of the season. Again, it was all politics. I think today, Hugh Scott was then was selling the club to Mike Peden, some businessman from down south. Mike Peden was bringing in his own guys. It turned out to be Alan Evans as the manager. Again, a European Cup winner with Aston Villa. So a guy with a great knowledge of the game. He comes in as a manager. I'm out of contract and I'm out the door. I don't get a new contract. So he brought a whole raft of guys up for England. So that kind of killed me, to be fair. So I was out the door.
And I remember
distraught, man.
I remember speaking to you about
Absolute distraught.
And you've nobody there.
No, you're just again, it's a life experience, Brian. I would have loved to have stayed. If I'd been able to hang on for probably 6 months, I could probably have spent 10, 15 years at Morton off the back of that. Because I really felt at home there. I really liked the club. I liked being in Greenock. There was it just felt right.
And I can see that how emotional you are through, because you can feel there's things that happen in your life, but I can see the emotion coming through you here. And it is, it's, as you said, it's a life learning experience. But obviously from that comes a phenomenal positive.
I would say it does. Life goes into a tailspin for a wee bit when something like that happens, doesn't it? You kind of don't know what way's up. The thing that I was a wee boy going through school and everything, I had some innate thing in me that I thought I was going to be a professional football player. I don't know why. And so I did do it, even though it was only for a couple of years. It puts us in that sort of 0.2% of football players that ever make it professional. So there's as much as I played down my career, I suppose that's still a
massive positive
to some degree. But it's something that you've looked forward to for your whole life, and then all of a sudden they take it away from you.
Of course.
So you've got to try and find a way.
I think for a lot of your young listeners as well, it can be a brutal game. It can be brutal, and you need to be prepared emotionally that you might get released from somewhere, but it's not the be all and end all. You need to just keep digging in and realise that but it is a brutal game.
I don't think there's any doubt, Brian. Probably the biggest thing in football that's going to make you a football player, obviously aside from ability and all that, but see if you don't have any resilience.
No.
If you've got no resilience and no character, forget it. You can be the best player. I mean, how many guys have you saw? I've played literally every level of football. I played Sunday League, I played amateur, junior, I've played every level. But how many guys play Saturday amateur and folks in at the side of the park and go, how did he never make it? How did he never make it? And it's probably down to resilience. No, probably. But that's one of the things
absolutely
that you need to have. And kind of on that, the funny thing is, I remember my mom saying no that long ago about, it was before my wee boy was born, and I was like, I don't want him involved in football, I don't want him to play football, etc, etc. And I remember my mother saying to me, I just think of all the disappointments you had when you played football. And I was like, I know. But then that's her saying that for me, who played professional, we won the reserve league at Morton as well. So I even had a professional medal. We won the reserve league West at Morton. And then all the success I had after that. But my mom is saying, the disappointments you had. And so it kind of makes you realise, even the guys that can, like me, who can say, I actually had a half decent career and I won some stuff. My mum still was like, it was just full of disappointments.
I know.
So it just shows you the amount of failure you've actually got to go through, even when you're successful.
So what brought you to Auchinleck then? How did you manage to get from Morton to Auchinleck?
I think probably I was on the released players list.
Oh God, I remember that list.
Send out, and I think, if I remember correctly, Gavin Friels, Gavin was at Stranraer as a striker when I played when I was at Morton. But the two of us had grown up playing against each other in boys club football, and our fathers knew each other. He was for just the Hill and Dorai. So Gavin was at Auchinleck, cracking striker, and he saw my name in the list and said to the Auchinleck manager, you should get a look at him. So I went and played a friendly with him I'd played a trial with Clydebank on a Saturday morning, trial game with them.
Was that still at Kilbowie?
So that was during the point where Clydebank were falling apart, essentially.
Steedmans.
Played a trial with Clydebank. It didn't go anywhere, but in the afternoon, I drove basically straight to, was it Trinent or somewhere like that, to play in the afternoon with Auchinleck. It's the days when you could play 2 games.
Absolutely.
In the one day.
Young and fit, what were you, about 22 then? 21, 22?
I would have been, at that point I'd been 20. I'd have been 20.
Super fit then, it's fine.
I was flying then, to be fair. Played with Auchinleck in the friendly, played really well, scored a goal, I think we won 4-0 or something, and they wanted to sign me after it, and that was me. That was me. And then,
could you play 2 games now?
Aye, it's a beauty. Certainly, honest to God.
So you've signed for Auchinleck. Who was the manager that signed you then? Who signed you?
Dennis Gray, Auchinleck legend.
Right.
Like, scored 3,000 goals with Auchinleck.
Right.
Won hundreds of trophies. He was a manager when I signed.
Yep.
So quickly, again, you're used to getting out of dressing rooms when you get to that stage. So getting into another new dressing room doesn't really faze you.
No.
Just different guys.
Absolutely.
You get used to. So I fitted in quite quickly, to be fair. And that was my kind of initial single solitary season at Auchinleck, because eventually got a new job 6 months after getting released from Morton, and so that could only be the season, because I had kind of initial period at my work that I had to kind of look after myself, so I had to stop playing. So I had that one season initially with Auchinleck, and then had to kind of drop out and played Saturday.
Do you remember who you made your debut against? I've had help here, by the way, so I'm feeling quite confident.
Debut for Auchinleck, it would have been, barring friendlies, it would have been a League Cup sectional game.
Yep.
I couldn't.
12th August 2000. Muirkirk, there you are. So,
home or away? You know,
home.
God, I couldn't remember.
Thanks to the stats guys at Auchinleck for helping me out with that one.
No, I wouldn't remember that.
Do you remember when you scored your first goal then for Auchinleck?
I remember scoring against Kello early on in the season. My left foot.
Yep, Kello Rangers.
A screamer into the top corner.
So that's 24 years ago. It's amazing. You still remember?
My God, I still remember the goal. I still remember cutting onto my left foot, getting my left foot for standing on.
Yeah.
Hitting it. It was a late equaliser as well.
Amazing. 2-2 the game finished.
That's right. Aye, 2-2.
So your stats guys, he's done excellent.
He's on the
whenever
money.
we see him, we can say thanks. So you've signed there.
Yep.
What position did you play? Did you play centre half?
I initially I went as a midfielder. Initially started in the centre of the park. Played a number of games there. As the season wore on, again, the thing that probably hampered my career was my ability to play in umpteen different positions. That's probably one of the reasons that I probably never was ever able to get a good run in the one place. I ended up playing wide right, wide left. I remember playing left back for a number of games later on in the season. So I ended up all over the place again, filling in. And when you're versatile like that, you end up getting moved about to accommodate for other players,
yeah.
Which is a,
very difficult,
excuse the French, a pain in the arse,
yes,
to be fair. And I can I'll touch on that later in terms of my later days at Auchinleck, but that was the kind of scenario there. I started off doing really well in the centre part, but ended up getting moved about all over the place. But I was only there for a season, so it could have been a really, really successful season, and we just hit the crossbar on a number of games, and I don't think we actually won anything.
No, you didn't win it in that season. So when you left, obviously, what made you go back again? So
I think I'd been away probably about two and a half years, and Tommy Sloan got the job at Auchinleck. It'd been a bit of a period of no upheaval, but Auchinleck hadn't had a lot of success for a couple of years. Tucker got the job.
And did you know him prior to
No,
this?
I'd played against Tommy. Had played with the Buffs, winning Rangers. Later on in his career, Tucker was a bit of a Stranraer legend. Scored hundreds of goals for them. I remember him playing. He played wide right. With winning Rangers, again another player that could play in a lot of different positions. So the Buffs, I think, had stuck him wide right. but he'd been a cracking striker. So I remember playing him later in his career when he was at the Buffs and I was younger, and he'd obviously remembered me because when he took over, I was one of the retained players. In those days, they just held your registration.
That's right, aye.
Before Jean-Marc Bosman. So I was still retained at Auchinleck. So he gave me a phone and he was like that, I've just got a job. Would you be interested in coming back to Auchinleck? So I was playing Saturday amateur at the time. Kind of hummed and hawed about it for a while. And then eventually was like, why no? And went back and realised I was a mile off it. A mile off it.
What went in respect, fitness wise,
just
touch,
everything. Everything. I'd been playing Saturday amateur, Brian. I'd been out on a Friday night.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? You would turn up. I'm going to say I turned up half Jake because I still had a modicum of professionalism about me.
But this goes back to the kind of resilience and the kind of you kind of say to yourself, yep, you might have been released, however, I need to stay professional. So I let it slide a wee bit because I started enjoying my Friday nights too much. Yep.
So I'm the best one in the world. I was playing Saturday amateur. I didn't need to be in my bed at 9 o'clock on a Friday night and stuff like that. So I probably took the piss a wee bit in terms of that. But when it came time to go back and play junior, I was a mile off it, and that sort of things served me well because having played in the first division, which is obviously now the championship in Scotland, I never ever felt out of place, Brian. I felt I could play at that level. I could play comfortably at that level, and it disappointed me that I never ever get a chance to try and play higher to see if I could do it. Because I felt once I had got my feet under the table that I could do it. But strangely, playing at that level, and then I'm playing at Saturday amateur, and suddenly then I'm struggling to play junior. It's a kind of strange thing.
Strange feeling.
But it was like light years away from playing in the first division of the championship, where I was playing, and then going away down and then stepping back up again. It took me months.
That's where my next question was going. On the pitch to get back.
On the pitch, you get up to speed again to where I felt I was again, in your head and stuff like that, and your touch. So it was pretty much just about, for that first 6 months, I was at Auchinleck, really struggled. They were kind of second bottom in the league.
Were you in and out the team at that point then?
No, once I got in, I was in, but it's that whole thing of, because you've been about a wee bit and got a bit more experience maybe than some folk, what do I need to do here in this game? My touch isn't there, my fitness isn't there. I need to go and win my headers. I need to go and crash into him that I'm playing against, win my tackles, get the ball forward, don't be taking too many touches on it because my touch isn't there. You know what I mean? So you find that way to
so you
play
adjusted your game,
until I'm back up to speed, football-wise, and that's what I did. And we stayed up. We played Maryhill last game of the season, had to win to stay up. Maryhill were one of the top teams probably at that time in the West, and we went to Maryhill, 1-3-0. Gavin Fields, that I was talking about earlier, scored the hat-trick. But I remember that game, Tommy Sloan played in the middle of the park. Him and John Traynor, who was at Celtic as a young boy. I think he played a couple of first-team games. John was about 37 as well. The two of them sat in the middle of the park and just crashed into tackles and just played it forward. And I remember in that game, crashing into a couple of tackles early doors. And strange how simple things like that sometimes lifts a team.
Of course it does.
What you win couple of 50-50s and suddenly everybody's in the front foot. Wee things like that stick out in your mind. But that was probably the thing that probably saved my career at Auchinleck. It probably, that game meant that we could then have success. Because see if we drew or lost that game and went down, it could have taken you 3, 4, 5 seasons to try and get back again.
So you think, right, you've managed to stay in that league. Did you think at any point you would then go into winning 3 Scottish Junior Cups, over 500 appearances, numerous League Cups, representing your country at Scottish international? Did you think at that point?
No. I was a mile off it, Brian. I was still a mile off it at that point in terms of my touch and stuff.
Well, obviously, Tommy Sloan obviously believed in you, though.
I think he probably, again, Tommy like, John McMaster like, a couple other guys like Ian McCall, Peter Weir, who coached me, they see something that other folk don't see in players. And I think Tommy probably could see that there was things that I did that I could bring that other folk maybe didn't bring. Even if it was just a pragmatism about playing football, he knows that if my touch isn't on it, I'm not going to arse about with it on the ball and get caught on it and stuff. He knows that I'll go and crash into tackles, I'll go and win headers, I'll go and try and bully my opponent. Do you know the kind of basic things that you need to do? So I'm still going to be adding something to the team, even if I'm not quite on it.
So when you went up to the season where you were in the Premier League,
aye,
and then you were on your journey in the Scottish Cup at that time, did you think at any point, we've got a right good chance here? No, really. We should the year we stayed up against Maryhill. Following year, I think we finished third in the league, and I think we get beat in the League Cup final. Finished third in the league. We won the Ayrshire Cup, and then it was that following season. That was when the really first time we really had the success. That was 05-06. It was,
but I wouldn't have said early doors that there's something special here. We're going somewhere.
Yep.
We should have been out. We should have been at the Scottish Cup, the Junior Cup in the first round.
Is that right? Who did you play in that?
I might say it was Dundee Downfield, but I can't remember who the other. I've got a funny feeling it was Dundee North End. First round of the Cup, Dundee North End. It went to penalty kicks, and we missed our first two penalties.
Oh God!
They scored their first two. We're 2 down. They only need to score their third. We ended up winning. I think we ended up winning 3-2 in penalties.
Who was your goalie at that time?
Stuart McIntosh.
And did he help you out then?
He saved a couple, man. We'd been at the Cup. I can't remember who missed the penalties, to be fair.
It's amazing, that, isn't it?
Again, it's that sliding doors moment, Bryan.
Yep.
We go at the Cup there. You might know go on and do whatever happens after that in the following years, but you stay in the Cup by the skin of your teeth.
It's amazing.
And we had a kind draw, I think, if I remember correctly, most of the way through. The first real big team that I remember playing was Talbot in the semi-final.
Yep, and they were a good side at that time.
Aye, they'd won it 2 or 3 times just in the preceding years. So they were kind of still there, but I saw that game as very much a kind of changing of the guard period.
Yep. Same
way as the Super Auchinleck team of the late 80s, early 90s kind of falls away eventually.
Of course.
And somebody else, the couple of other teams take over, and then Talbot kind of have their purple patch. We beat them in the semi-final in extra time. I remember, funny things that may stick in your head. Remember, they had a big midfielder, Scott Peters. I think he played with Scotland as well. But I remember playing against him in that game.
I think Scotty actually played at Arbroath as well.
Right, so you know him. But I remember, you know how there's a wee bit of needles during the game. I'm sure you were involved in that.
Yes, I had a few needles.
So I remember. So we were playing against each other, and I remember it was maybe a long throw or something, and I've won a header against them. And there was a wee bit of needle, and I've said something to him, and I remember him saying to me, "I am many Scottish Cup winners medals have you got?" I said to him, "I'm not getting any, but I'll have won it at the end of this season."
Oh, there you are.
I think they might have still been. They might have been winning 1-0 at that point in the game. But there's that bit of back and forth.
Of course,
I always appreciated that. Because he was a good competitor.
But some players don't. Some players take it hard. But you're kind of like, no, just go on with it.
It's part of the game.
So he's got to the final.
Yes.
You won the final against Bathgate.
Yes.
What was that like? I've watched the footage back. Oh my God.
It was so that team, the Auchinleck team, I would probably go as far to say experience and youth wise, it was probably the strongest one we played in. Just with what we had. Big Derek Anderson in the centre of defence at the back, organising everything, talking, and a cracking player. Young Gavin Collins beside him at the time. Again, another good defender, but a lot younger than Dell. But Dell looked after them all and organised them. We had Tosh in goals, really experienced, good goalie. Dell in centre defence. We had then me and Stuart Davidson Arnie, who's a Largs manager now. Arnie had been at Kilmarnock for a number of years before he then came
It's like the backbone of your team there.
So the backbone of your team was Tosh, Derek Anderson, myself and Arnie in the centre of the park. Stevie Mallon. Do you remember Stevie Mallon?
I do, yep.
Stevie Mallon up front.
Fantastic.
Stevie was about 85 when he played even then in the cup final. So the spine of that team was, I mean, Stevie's probably I think it's fair to say he's the hardest guy I've ever
played with.
Been about.
Yep.
Aye. I mean, the nicest guy in the world as well, off the park. But as a competitor,
really hard.
Animal.
That's
Brilliant.
amazing, isn't it?
Love it. So that spine was great. So he won that game.
How was the celebrations? 2,500 at the game, fans wise.
I would have thought there was a lot more.
There was only a population of 3,500 at Auchinleck, and 2,500 went to the final.
Aye.
So what was the welcome like when you got back down to Beach?
Incredible. Open top bus.
Oh wow.
So open top bus. So we're on the bus to just outside Auchinleck.
Yep.
You actually go through. They take you through for the non-Ayrshire, the non-East Ayrshire person. It's a wee village called Catherine.
Right.
It's known locally as Cottam.
Right. Okay.
So that's just before you go into Auchinleck from one of the directions. So the bus went through Cottam first, and there's folk out in the street first, and then you go into Auchinleck, and you go down by the old Auchinleck Academy, and then you turn left onto the main street, and it was just like chaos all the way down the main street.
It's amazing.
That was brilliant, man. What a feeling. I used to, as a wee boy, I would read the Sexton Soccer Herald. So at all the junior, there's umpteen junior clubs
results,
about it. So I would always open at the back page and I would read all the match reports for the junior games, and I would look at all the teams, all the players. And so I was really kind of soaked in junior football.
Yep.
So for me to then go and win the junior cup was like, I promise it was like winning the Champions League.
So where was your family then at this point?
Oh, they were all at the game, and then they were all in Auchinleck by the time you got there.
Wow.
So that was something else on the open top bus all the way down. The celebrations were just
Where did you end up after the party?
So we stayed, and we went to Talbot Club initially, and then you end up. So that would have been by the time the game was done. By the time we were back in Auchinleck, probably about 6 o'clock. Because the game had been live on STV.
Oh, with the trackies on.
For
the suits?
Trackies. No, it was suits.
Suits, you said on suits.
I remember Derek Anderson swinging his suit jacket.
Yep.
When he's and chucking it off the top of the bus.
Brilliant.
Just mental things.
So then you've went on then and you've won 2 more junior cup titles.
Aye.
I mean, as a captain.
Aye. The 2006 one was a dream because I always wanted to win the junior cup.
Yeah.
It was like the pinnacle for me. 2009 was the first year I was a captain. So there was a massive expectation I put on myself being the captain. I was like, Auchinleck don't lose junior cup finals.
Yep.
I'm not going to be the captain that loses this one. So I made sure we didn't lose that game.
Superb.
So that was great to lift the trophy as a captain. And
was it open top bus again?
Open top bus again. Aye.
Fantastic.
Again, 3-day event. Me and Arnie were in Auchinleck to the Tuesday night.
Yep.
The first time, again, I think it was the same in 2009.
Yep.
And then in 2011, still the captain, but I wanted to win it again. As much as I wanted another medal, because I knew we had another 3-day event of a celebration.
Yep.
So I was like, can't lose this. I want to enjoy the celebration. So things it's stuff I would never have dreamed of, Brian.
So you've moved on there. You won all these titles. You've looked back in your career over 500 appearances. I've actually asked you to do something earlier on before we come on to the show. So I've asked you to contact 5 of your mates.
Yes.
And the question, you can read it out when you get your phone and you can tell me.
Right, the question that you asked me was sent out to 5 of them. Hi mate, feeling a bit sentimental today and was just thinking I must have been the best player you ever played with. Hope you're well, mate.
Okay.
So,
and let's hear the replies, please.
Kevin Struthers.
Who's Kevin?
Kevin, I played with Kevin at Largs. Kevin was at Morton.
Okay.
For a couple of years. And then played with Largs, Kilburn, a couple of junior teams. Cracking guy, cracking striker. He's just replied with a laughing face and just wrote easily.
Oh, ideal.
So I'll take that, to be fair. Liam McVeigh.
Okay.
Liam McVeigh. I'm good, mate. Probably second best. Probably second best after the Bull for us, to be honest.
Fair enough.
Craig for us.
Yep.
What else we got? Arnie. Hi, mate. You're definitely the best midfield partner I've had. Laughing face. So that's no bad
That's
as well.
really good.
Nobody
Really good.
slaughtered me,
No
to be
slagging
fair. So I'm taking that. John Boyle, my best ever captain.
It's amazing. You're paying these people before you come on.
And then I've got he's put a love heart after it as well.
Amazing.
Honestly, they must think I'm on the verge here. Roland Fabiani. He, again, laughing face. Oh, good, mate. And you're a close second to Paul Lambert.
Fair enough. I suppose he played with Lambert, didn't he?
I'll not argue with that, to be fair.
Aye.
They've not ripped me. They must.
And what that to me is just, it just exceeds the fact that you've brought so much excellent football as a teammate to these people.
I would probably argue less about excellent football, Brian, and probably me.
No, I've watched you, don't you? I know you're being a wee bit kind of, how can you put it, unbiased, right? But what a fantastic career. Everybody that I've spoken to and I've reached out to and I've researched, every single person has said the exact same thing, that you are the first guy that they want on that park. And that's just been reiterated there with the fact that you're five mates, a couple of back and forth, but yep, they're just standing shoulder to shoulder with you. And what a compliment it must feel. So now you can say to your mum now and you can go back and say, by the way, actually, my career wasn't too bad.
It was all right. Aye, there was a couple of high points in it.
Yeah, it was amazing. So there you go. So listen, that's the end of the interview, Brian. Thank you so much.
Brilliant.
What an insight. And Auchinleck, hopefully they'll all tune in. So Sexton Soccer Stories, that's it, finished. So if anybody's got any questions they would like to ask me, or again ask Brian again that I've maybe not covered in the interview, please just drop us a message. You can catch me on my socials at Sexton Soccer Stories, TikTok, Instagram and Facebook, and obviously my YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. Thank you so much, and everybody stay tuned. My next guest is going to be a former Kilmarnock and St Mirren legend, or the other way about, St Mirren and Kilmarnock legend. So please stay tuned, and thank you so much for listening, and we'll speak to you soon. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks for having me, Brian.